You know, it's interesting to me how a lot of people think that they need their personal brand to be so big in order to make money. And so what they do is they think small and it limits their mindset. And they think that it's sort of benchmark based. Once I get X amount of followers, once I get X amount of subscribers, that's when everything's going to make sense. That's when I'm going to be able to monetize my audience. They're waiting for that moment. And then when it hits, then it's sort of like they have all this anticipation built up to that level, and once it hits, they launch the product and then nothing happens. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to communicate to you, is that you don't need like this massive audience. You don't need these so many different customers to make money and live your dream life, and eventually make the money that you want to make with your business and your brand. And I think when you're forward looking to that aspect of like, once I get 1,000 subs on YouTube, or 10,000 or 100,000 followers on Instagram, that's when everything's gonna click. That's when I'm gonna be able to monetize my audience. But there are so many cool, interesting ways that you can build this cult-like following of people who actually like you and people who actually want to work with you because you solve the problem that they have. And you need to, there's a freaking bug here. And when it comes to a personal brand, like, my journey in and of itself was not linear. Like, I started with fitness and productivity and all this stuff, and I didn't have a monetization path at the time. I didn't care for it. I did care about it. I just didn't know how to do it, right? Because I was coming from the entertainment space with my identical twin brother, we went viral. We knew how to get attention. We knew what we were doing. We knew, like, we had posts that did 60 million views, 50 million views, 40 million. We got 400 million views in less than a year. And so we knew how to be relatable and get attention and sort of captivate an audience, and build an audience. And so I came in hitting the ground running with my own Instagram personal brand through a different niche, through a different, category. And so I would allocate those principles of what I knew to that niche of productivity, fitness, mindset, discipline, all of that stuff, the attributes and characteristics that an entrepreneur would have. And knowing that and doing that, that's when I sort of figured out, I want to create, I want to gather attention, I want to build a brand. And I was coming at it from such a different angle than I would have approached it now, of being more specific and more intentional with actually building like this small cult-like highly qualified audience of people who genuinely like you, and they're genuinely following you because they like you, you give them insights, you provide value, and they ultimately just subscribe to your worldview. And that's sort of what I'm doing here with this YouTube channel, is that I want to build a smaller audience of people that, in like a community that I truly like, where we're all sort of moving towards the same direction, right? Like, I already figured out how to sell. I'm just a guy who figured out how to sell his expertise online. And so all of this matters because, when you're approaching brand building, I think it's really important to have a vivid vision of what you want to do and what you want your life to look like. Because, like, ultimately, it's like the actions required for you to design the life are minimal, and you want to reduce the resistance between you and the actual execution so that the life becomes inevitable. And that is one of the biggest things when I think of personal branding, is like, you want to build a highly qualified audience of people who actually know, like, and trust you enough to pay for the problem, for you to eliminate the problem that they have, okay? And that's the way I like to think about it. And so many people are focused on the crowd. They're focused on bigger, growing a bigger audience. Like, I want to grow a bigger audience. That's why, I see so many people in the status signals of success, and they have a big audience. So that must be how they're making their money. Like, I used to be so molecular in terms of like how to approach a personal brand. What are the tactical things that we need in order to make the growth, something that is sustainable, and actually building a qualified audience of people who want to buy from you. But like, the whole problem with that ideology is like, you're only thinking about yourself. Like, you're only thinking about like, how do I build a qualified audience so people can pay me? And you never think about like, what value could I provide other people regardless of if I was going to get paid for it or not? That's where fulfillment actually comes from. And like really just helping other people. Instead of thinking about like, I want this stuff, I want that. Like I'm doing this so that they can pay me. That is one of the biggest things. That's the biggest unlock when you come from a place of like genuine help and value and just like documentation versus I want to sell these people. Like I'm just in it for myself, because the more you chase something, the more you're going to push it away, which ties into the law of attraction. It's like you have to become the identity, that person, in order for things to come to you, right? It's like you want to have things, you want to be the person where the desires and the fruits of life just naturally come to you. It's like, how do you do that? You have to live, breathe, and, you know, be that person where those things come to you and you are capable of doing the actions that attract those things. So many people are just out here chasing followers, chasing views, chasing likes, chasing money. And like when you come at it like that, you're just gonna push it away further and further. And a lot of people just like, they give you this mental frame, and like a lot of the desires just simply aren't yours. If we think of like Rene Girard's like a whole mimetic desire, like the desires that you have are just installed, like you're mimicking or imitating those desires instilled upon you by other people. And so you never even know if the things that you want right now are genuinely yours from a foundational standpoint. And that's why I say, you know, do things that you wouldn't, like you would do if regardless of if you got paid for it. Because those are the things that you actually want. Those are the things that you actually desire, because you would do it regardless. And this is more of like a fulfillment talk. Like, how do you be fulfilled in what you're doing? And how do you actually know that the path that you're going on is something worth pursuing? Because everyone's telling you to scale, grow your business, scale, scale, scale. You hear it screaming in your face. It's screamed in your face by everybody else. They're telling you to desire this thing, and this thing is getting repeated over and over again and installed into your brain. And now, in terms of, you know, mimesis or mimetic desire, you believe that this is something that you want. You're like, no, this is a genuine desire that I wanted in the first place, but it never was, because people are just giving it that desire and you're inheriting it from other people. And I really want you to think about this. It's like, how do I just get a qualified, like, in order for me to live my dream life, in order for me to make $30,000 per month, like, or 40 or 50 or however much, whatever the number is, how do I become the person? What is required for me to, oh wow, there's a sparrow. That's pretty sick. My ADHD going crazy. How do I become the person that attracts the people who are willing to pay me because I have a skill, because I own in on a specific craft, because it solves a painful, expensive problem? And so when the real unlock, and damn, it's so mosquito-y outside, but the real unlock is where you point your skill. Because you have a skill, and a single person can point their skill at different problems. One problem is significantly more expensive. This alone will 6x your business, or like 10x your business, because of your pricing power purely, and the amount of desire and, you know, the actual problem that you're solving. How expensive is it, and what can I charge for? Because if you point your skill at a $100 problem, you're gonna collect a portion of $100. But if you point your skill at a $100,000 problem, you're gonna collect some, you know, percentage of $100,000. And so it really depends, like the amount of money you make. Someone with the same skill can point their skill, or two people with the same skill can point their skill at different problems and make significant, like vastly different amounts of money. This one thing is like one of the most important things that I often tell my clients, because a lot of them have a skill that solves an expensive problem, but they're just pointing their skill at a problem that isn't worth that much. And so like the reframe that you need to make is you need to identify where is money already exchanging hands as an expensive, damn man, just got bit by a mosquito. It's crazy out here. Where can I point my skill What was I saying? Um, oh man, it's crazy out here. But what I was saying was that you can point your skill at different, completely different problems, and make vastly different amounts of money from it. And it's one of those things where a lot of my clients struggle with that exact same thing. They point their skill at a less expensive problem when they otherwise could have solved a more expensive problem with their skill. I think that one shift got me from literally like 10 to 20K to like 30, 40K per month. But this one's gonna be a quick one. As you know, I'm not in my original setting right now. I'm traveling, and apparently I'm traveling to the swamp because there's tons of mosquitoes on me right now. But yeah, this is day like 11 out of 30 for the 30-day challenge. And so I'm excited to share a lot of the insights and findings that, I've sort of uncovered so far in terms of the data. But at day 31, we're gonna dive into all my analytics and figure out what insights can we gather from posting, an 8 to 20-minute video every day for 30 days on YouTube, and figuring out that. So, because this is a really, really interesting experiment. Yeah, as always, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.